I never imagined that one day I would wake up and see my name, my face, my entire existence dragged into something so dark, so alien to everything I stand for. Yet, here I am, standing on a stage of global scrutiny, forced to speak for myself because silence only becomes fuel for speculation, and speculation becomes narrative, and narrative becomes a cage. People look at me and they see headlines, they see the electric cars, the rockets, the satellites, the memes, the noise. But they forget that behind all of it is a human being who feels the weight of accusation like a stone pressed against the lungs. When a lawsuit appears in the world, naming me among others, painting a picture of horrors I have never witnessed and actions I have never taken, the world rushes to judge before they understand, because modern judgment is fast, furious, algorithmic, and it thrives on outrage. I watch as my name circulates with words like trafficking and conspiracy, words that sink like anchors, dragging even the most absurd claims into the deep waters of public imagination. I ask myself how we reached a point where being well known means being vulnerable not only to criticism is fine, criticism is fair, but to being woven into stories created by people I've never met, events I've never touched, and motives that feel entirely foreign to the person I know myself to be. I think about my family, my friends, the people who trust me, the engineers who pour their hearts into missions to Mars, the workers in factories who believe in building something better, and I feel anger, not at the world but at the distortion of it, at how easily a name can become a symbol in someone else's play. I try to breathe through it to remind myself of who I am, to remember that truth does not vanish just because lies travel faster. But I also know the truth alone doesn't satisfy the appetite of modern media. It doesn't trend, it doesn't ignite, it doesn't feed the digital bonfire. So here I am, telling my story, or at least the part of it that exists beneath the storm. I categorically deny ever participating in, witnessing, enabling, or tolerating anything resembling the nightmare these allegations suggest. And I say that with the full force of my integrity, with the same conviction that has guided every impossible project I've ever attempted. I have always lived with intense pressure, but this is different. Rockets exploding teach you something. They teach you persistence, humility, iteration, but character assassination teaches a different lesson. One about vulnerability, about how even the strongest armor can feel thin when the attack is not on your ideas but on your humanity. Yet I refuse to let a false narrative define me. I refuse to let the world believe that fame equates to guilt or that ambition invites moral distortion. I know investigations take time, and I welcome that time because truth is patient and unafraid. I know there are people who will never believe me simply because my name is too big, too polarizing, too Elon Musk to be viewed through the lens of fairness. But I also know there are people who see through the haze, who understand that being accused is not the same as being guilty, that legal filings can contain claims that collapse under real scrutiny. So I continue, step by step, not as a billionaire caricature or a meme or a headline, but as a man who still believes in building things that matter, because the world doesn't change through fear or silence. It changes when you keep going, even when they try to stop you with shadows. And so, I speak now not because I owe the world an explanation for things I did not do, but because I refuse to let my silence be misinterpreted as acceptance of a false reality. My story is still mine, and I will not allow anyone, court of public opinion or otherwise, to rewrite it without a fight. I kept thinking that eventually the noise would quiet down, that people would pause long enough to realize that a lawsuit is not a verdict, and that my name being included in a swirl of accusations does not magically transform fiction into fact. But instead, the noise grew louder, more distorted, like an echo chamber feeding on itself. And I found myself navigating a world where every tweet, every interview, every public appearance could be twisted into evidence of something I never did. So I chose to confront the storm rather than hide from it, standing in the spotlight even as it burned, because disappearing only convinces the world you have something to run from, and I have nothing to run from, nothing to conceal, nothing to tuck away in shadows. I talk to lawyers, advisors, people whose job it is to make sense of chaos, and I see the same thing in their eyes. A mix of frustration and determination, because they know the difference between accusation and proof, and yet they also know the court of public opinion thrives on sensation, on bold names and dramatic storytelling, not on slow, methodical truth. I think about the irony of it all. I spent my life trying to solve difficult problems, engineering challenges, existential threats to humanity, only to discover that one of the hardest problems of all is convincing the world to separate your identity from the stories they are fed about you, especially when those stories are drenched in shock value. I admit there are nights when I wonder how many people genuinely care about the truth versus how many simply enjoy the spectacle of tearing down a public figure. It's strange being both a symbol of optimism for some and a lightning rod for resentment in others, and accusations, especially sensational ones, triggers something primal in human psychology, something that leaps to judgment before reason has a chance to speak. But I refuse to surrender my life's work, my purpose, my sanity, to narrative designed to distract or destabilize. And so each day I remind myself that integrity isn't proven when everything is calm, it's proven when everything is shaking. I continue leading companies, making decisions, planning missions, innovating, because stopping would mean letting the accusations win, letting them define the boundaries of who I am allowed to be. And yes, part of me is angry that false stories can spread faster than speed of light communication networks we built, angry that my name can be dragged into a world of darkness I have no connection to, angry that people I care about have to witness the spectacle, but anger is not the engine of my life. Purpose is, and purpose demands clarity. So I stand here saying once more, as clearly as physics itself, I have never engaged in, enabled, or been involved in anything like the allegations being thrown around. And the truth will outlast the rumor, the noise, the spectacle. I know that history remembers those who persist more than those who accuse. And I intend to persist, to build, to explore, to rise above the chaos. Because in the end, the only story that survives is the one grounded in reality, and no amount of distortion can change who I am or who I refuse to become. As the days went on and the accusations kept echoing across screens, timelines, and conversations, I found myself studying not the claims themselves. They remain as false today as the moment they surfaced, but the machinery behind them, the way a single filing can trigger a cascade of speculation that multiplies like a runaway reaction. And I realized that fighting for the truth isn't just about presenting facts, it's about resisting the gravitational pull of public hysteria, a force as real and unpredictable as any physical law I've ever worked with. I watch analysts on TV, commentators online, strangers with opinions crafted from fragments of headlines, all confidently narrating a version of my life that has nothing to do with the man I am, and it's surreal. Like watching someone else pilot a rocket you designed while having absolutely no understanding of its systems, shouting instructions from a control room they built in their imagination. There's a strange calm that comes with recognizing the limits of your control. I cannot stop the world from talking, but I can anchor myself in what I know, in who I am, and in the reality that the truth doesn't evaporate just because someone somewhere decided to write me into a story that never happened. And yet, I won't pretend it's easy. It wears on you, like constant turbulence during a long flight. Not enough to knock you out of the sky, but enough to test your endurance, your clarity, your belief in your own trajectory. Some people around me tell me to ignore it, to keep building rockets and machines and futures, but ignoring something isn't the same as overcoming it, and I refuse to let my narrative be shaped by silence or strategic retreat.